Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, this is David Searns with Haley Marketing, and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley event. John, you want to turn on your camera? You can join us. So today's event is all about sales and marketing integration and how you can accelerate sales performance in your sales team. Now, initially, for those who were signing in, you probably saw that there were three names, myself, John Klymshyn, and Anna Frazzetto. Unfortunately, Anna had as she described it, a crisis at work, and I had to drop out today. So, John, I don't know if that's good or bad for the audience, but they just get the two of our mugs to look at for the next hour as we talk about all things sales and marketing. So, John, welcome, and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, David, first and foremost, yes, very, very disappointed that Anna had something else come up. We know that she is very judicious in her decisions, so that had to be a big deal for her not to join us today. The hope is that we offer some insight and some dynamic conversation between you and I that will help people. And where that starts, I think, is the word that hangs over my head here in my office, which is inspire. To take on the mantle of that and to aspire to that on a daily basis. When I first started my career, I thought, oh, that's a little pompous. That's a little kind of getting ahead of the game. And over the many years that I've been doing this, and February 1st, I'll start my 25th year in private practice. I learned that the path to inspiring is understanding, being able to listen to what people say, and not play games like, well, you really should listen to what's not being said. I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of radar. I don't have that kind of tuning fork. And I will make many references to music over our conversation today, as I have over the many years that you and I have known each other, where we've both spoken at American Staffing Association events and chapters across the country. And we reconnected earlier this year in Illinois for the Midwest Staffing Association. So a little bit about me, 24 and a half years in private practice as someone who is fascinated with, obsessed with the intersection between language and music. There is a spark there. There is a flashpoint there in my mind and in my heart. And as someone who started his practice as a very bold, I'm going to go out and teach people how I think we should sell as high integrity, ethical humans with a sense of humor. I literally cut my teeth bouncing across North America, serving staffing companies, serving staffing chapters, and two other specific vertical markets that when I initially began going after these, I didn't recognize what they had in common. I was taught a lesson in 2008 about what they did have in common. And since then, have been fortunate enough to rebuild the practice up to today, where it's vibrant, it's fun, and it's exciting. And for those that may not know what I'm talking about, in 2008, when I started my business in 1999, one of my vertical markets was staffing. The other vertical market was commercial real estate. And the other vertical market was high-end hospitality. So convention centers, meeting centers, 4-star hotels that did, hundreds of room nights and brought corporations and organizations in for events. So in early 2008, when we had something called the global financial crisis, staffing cut back, travel and training cut back, renting office space cut back. And it was a perfect storm. Now, many years later, thank God, I can laugh about it. It was not funny. And as I said, I learned some very key lessons there. First and foremost was how important it was for me on a regular basis to answer the question, how do I want to spend my time? And here we are in early August of 2023. And I encourage everyone over the Labor Day weekend to find some time with a pen and paper and to answer that question for themselves. How do I want to spend my time? So not exactly 100% about me and my background, David, but hopefully ideas and personality will come out over the course of time that we talk today.
No, and that's one of the things that I love about working with you, John, is that that personality and those ideas come out. And when you said look over my shoulder, and I quickly looked at the wall, and I expected to see the word believe, but I guess I've watched just too many episodes of Ted Lasso, and I really like the inspired and having that sort of that North Star to look at. So we're going to talk today about sales and marketing, and let's just jump in with a broad question for everybody. I know most of the people listening in today are from the staffing industry, some executive recruiters. But John, I like the fact that your experience, who you're working with, is not just our industry, because you can bring a broader perspective and the perspective of what it's like to be some of our clients. So just what are you seeing going on in the market right now? Is it really getting harder to sell?
It is absolutely getting harder to sell because the fractured nature of how business is growing. We can't, of course, we cannot have any kind of a webinar or podcast like this without at least saying AI. We're not going to get into
it's coming up later. I know you can't have a webinar without AI.
It's like, yeah, it's like one of us has Tourette's. We have to say AI. Here's where I see sales becoming more difficult over the last couple of years. Now, hopefully we're post-pandemic. All right, if that's the case, what does that mean to salespeople? It means that the absolute core essential requirements for someone to be successful in sales, and I say this as a 38-year experienced salesperson selling business to business, as a 8-year experienced salesperson selling and managing salespeople that sold staffing, the two key requirements for success in selling today are dialed up. They are lit. They are as red hot as can be. First is curiosity. Curiosity requires a certain amount of patience, David, because if I'm curious about your business, that means I have the second thing, which is discipline. The discipline to hear you out. I am not going to learn everything about your business and your hopes and your wishes and your dreams and your future plan by sending out a cold email. You know this better than anyone.
Oh yeah.
Has to be part of a plan, has to have a clear message, has to engage the reader. So the two key requirements in selling today, I don't think they're brand new. I think they're even more intense, and that's what makes it more difficult. And here's the thing, you know me a long time. I am not a guy that goes around telling salespeople what they want to hear. I'm in the business of telling salespeople the truth. And here's the truth. This is difficult, man. When I do sales management training, I say, who in their right mind would choose every day to go to work and manage salespeople, right? Why? Well, because salespeople are mercurial, right? They're way up and down. They're highly emotional. And that list is the list of reasons that we love them, because what all of those things add up to is creativity. They will find a way, and they will, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. The way that they can find a way is by leading with curiosity and backing it up with technique. And technique comes from practicing discipline. We don't aspire to discipline, and nor do we struggle with discipline. I'm a language fanatic. When someone says to me, I'm struggling with discipline, my response is, I don't think you're wrestling with it out on the front lawn. You are either practicing discipline or you're not. Is that a little dispassionate? Yeah, because here's the thing. The people that can pick up an instrument and play it with great proficiency, they have put in the discipline way before they're in front of you, right? So is it more difficult? 100%. People have their cell phone numbers listed in Zoom Info and in Seamless AI. So I have been coaching salespeople this year that have said, I just caught 3 different people on their cell phone when they are golfing. And I'm like, cool, what a great way to start a conversation. You don't live the relationship then, but you start the conversation. When do you expect to be off the course? How far down the road would it make sense for us to speak? So addressing the difficulty of selling today, there are always going to be barriers between us and the decision committee. And that's another reason that it's more difficult today than it was 4, maybe 6 years ago. I remember days where we would do research and we would formulate questions about what to ask the decision maker next time we spoke to them. Well, I'll tell you what, in my universe, there is no such thing. there's a decision committee. We live in a highly social world. And one of my clients 2 years ago was I think they were the fourth largest owner operator of apartment communities in North America. And what their CEO shared with all of the salespeople as we did a tour across the country selling leasing was that no one goes to look at an apartment and decides on their own whether or not they should live there. They're taking pictures while they're standing there. They're texting their friends and asking, what do you think? They're asking their parents how, what do they think the drive will be to work? Before they've even gotten back to the car, they have made some emotional cooperative decision as part of this committee. And now that has moved into and is a key component of selling today. Anybody that's on here that is selling as a regular part of their role or leading, managing, inspiring, directing salespeople, please hear this. Find out, identify the members of the decision committee and understand that individuals will come in and out of that committee over the course of your selling conversation. So how does that make things more difficult? Well, it's not just one person that we're selling to anymore. So it's not just about getting a profile. It is about finding out what the collective thought process is, and then identifying, okay, I'm going to borrow from a competing author here. We have to identify the champion, meaning who's excited about working with us. The cheerleader, meaning the person that's going to be enthusiastic in the group, but doesn't really have a voice or a vote, but they're in the room, they're part of the committee. And then the chairperson, and the most adept chairperson rarely says, I'm going to do this. What they say is, okay, so who do we like? Who do we think we want to have serve us? Who do we want to do business with? Again, being a language fanatic, I work with people that are in high dollar transaction tech sales. These are the folks that are selling companies where the ongoing contract is $150,000 a month in billing. And what we talk about is the fact that that decision committee has influence and has personality. So the chairperson is rarely the one that is the ultimate decision maker. However, they will exert influence. So we've got to find out, number one, what are the key concerns of the people on the committee? What is the strength of voice within the committee? And what does the chairperson ultimately want this committee to accomplish? Because them evaluating us as a provider could be a leadership exercise for them. Now, it's difficult for us, but we've all been in a position where we've been asked for a proposal, and that proposal is marched right to our competitor. And because they've kind of half decided to work with that competitor, but they wanted another price.
Yep.
It's happened to me. So what are your fees? Well, I want to get that out of the way right away. So is selling more difficult now? Yes. 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 And guess what? That's why I love it so much.
Love that. So I want to build on something you talked about. I'm going to go back with a follow-up question. The build apart is we've heard from several of our clients that committee issue. And what I think is very challenging for salespeople is the committee is very often comprised of a buyer they were used to selling to, somebody in HR. So they know their value proposition to HR. But now it might be the CFO or a controller. There's a financial decision maker. And the value of the staffing services to that decision maker is very different than it is to HR. Sometimes there may also be the end hiring manager, department manager, or general manager who's going to have a whole different set of goals and objectives when it comes to staffing. So if you're the salesperson walking into that environment, how do you prepare yourself for success when you've got people who are going to look at your company's value from completely different perspectives?
Well, forewarned is forearmed. Not that we're going to battle. However, we got to kind of be prepared to hold up the shield and be ready to wield the sword. If I have an influencer / cheerleader / champion, and they know that part of the conversation is going to involve a senior level executive in their firm, I want a couple of questions answered by my champion. So what's the personality that I'll be facing? What are their key concerns? What is the language that they use in meetings that you have attended? That tells us so much about people, right? When they say, well, listen, all we got to do is fill that spot. Is that someone whose organization is about finding the right personality, the right intellect, the right culture fit? Or are they looking to fill a role? Are they looking for a functionary? And if that's the case, then we as recruiters, we need to know that. We need to know what the value of the role and the person in that role will be. So first and foremost, you say, I have to, John, I appreciate you reaching out, and we've worked together before, but you need to talk to, Michelle, and here's what you're going to be facing. Great. How difficult would it be? This is one of my favorite questions. How difficult would it be for you, Michelle, and I to spend 17 to 21 minutes together? I don't use the word meet because meet sounds formal and boring, and it sounds like the first 8 minutes.
And meetings send up an instant red flag. No,
Yeah, exactly,
it's a waste of time.
How difficult would it be for you, Michelle, and I to speak for 17 to 21 minutes? Why would I say 17 to 21 as opposed to 15 or 30? Well, because when people ask for 15, they want 30. When they ask for 30, you're going to be with them for 45. And the last 17 minutes are going to be reiterations of things that have been said twice already. I'm not trying to be cynical. I listen. So how difficult would it be? What questions like that do is they prompt response. Language prompts response. You know that better than anyone. Yeah. Language prompts response. When we say, well, why'd you do that? That's very different from, wow, it's an interesting choice. What led to that? Very different. I'm not interested in softening. I'm interested in prompting response. So when we have to sell to additional people, that's what makes selling more difficult now. It's not all resident in one chair at one title. And we can wring our hands about it on Saturday morning, or we can step up.
Yeah, you said something really interesting in there.
Finally.
Sort of, you said a lot of interesting, but one thing that really stuck out to me is a lot of times the buyer in a situation says, oh, we're going to have a meeting with so-and-so and so-and-so, and you know who's coming to the room, and you may know their job title. But what you said that I loved is to talk to that person who's your champion about, tell me about the people who are going to be in the room. What are they looking to accomplish? What's important to them? And I don't know this for a fact if it's 99% or 1%, but what percentage of salespeople ask their champion for a profile and the interests of the people who will be in the room so that you're appropriately ready to have that 17 to 21 minute conversation. So I'm taking that personally because I know I don't get ready to walk into the room like that, and it's an easy change, so I can go in prepared. And if you're a salesperson and you know you're going to have a CFO in the room and you're like, I don't speak math, I got into sales because I don't speak math, then you want to talk to people in your organization, say, tell me with other clients, can we evaluate the impact we had? Do we know how much we saved them in terms of turnover and what that meant to their business? Do we know how much we kept a line from going down or packages getting out the door? Do we know the financial? And if it's not in hard dollars, then even in soft dollars, the value we've delivered to our clients. So when that very analytical person is sitting across the table, I can say, yeah, we worked with an organization like yours, and here's the situation when we came in, and here's the situation today, and be able to present that before and after to someone who is going to be a very analytical decision maker. Whereas you also maybe know, like, I didn't use that, it's not really 4 letters, but that 4-letter word purchasing, if they're sitting in the room, they've got one goal. They get their annual bonus based on how much they beat you up on price. So are you going in with a game plan saying, I have to give them a place to win, or I can't win? I have a friend who runs a PR agency, and he had a strategy I loved. He called it Kill the King. And he would go into negotiations with purchasing departments, and his PR agency worked with large buyers of public relations services. And he would set all of the game plan for everybody in his team at their regular bill rates. And then he put himself in there at an outrageous hourly bill rate. And he said, I go into the negotiation wanting that purchasing department to see my numbers stand out and fire me from the team. He goes, I was really never going to be on the team very much, So
Right.
it's not negatively impacting when he says, no, you have to charge it the same bill rate as everybody else. He goes, I can give that away because I planned for what the buyer needed. Because if I gave them nothing and I couldn't budge on price, they'd pick somebody else simply because they're measured in their job by how they win. And we have to be ready for that in our negotiations. So now I want to come back to one thing. You talked about discipline. And I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and the host and the guest were going back and forth on sales process. I've got a couple of questions coming up here on this, but one in particular stood out to me. They said, if it took you 100 calls to get an appointment in 2020, it takes 200 today. Are you seeing that?
I would dial that back by a percentage. Where if in 2020 it took 100 calls to get an appointment, I would say it's probably close to 140. I love saying that it's 200 because I'm not in the business of telling salespeople what they want to hear. Right? You've seen me post on LinkedIn when these ridiculous statements come out, and it's like, okay, do I say anything? Do I just let it go? Do I say anything? Do I let it go? And anyone that's out there saying cold calling doesn't work anymore, my immediate response, I'm surprised LinkedIn doesn't finish typing it for me. I've said it so many times. You guys go ahead and you waste time debating the effectiveness of it. Me and my clients are going to be beating you up in the market by doing it. Here's the thing. We can debate the effectiveness of cold calling, or we can be busy doing it. I can talk about my guitar, or I can sit down for an hour with it. It's a big difference. Discipline, as a language fanatic, discipline is following a regular, proven path to improvement. Following is a verb. It intimates and initiates action in the mind. And that's where every discipline lives. I was having coffee with a friend of mine when I still lived in Los Angeles, near Los Angeles. He's a successful screenwriter. And he and I used to have coffee about every 5 to 6 weeks. And I said to him, we were talking about something, and I said, yeah, well, that's actually a mental discipline. And he leaned forward and he said, John, every discipline is a mental discipline. So the discipline of making those additional calls. Oh, this is boring. Listen, way back when, in another century, when I started my selling career, one of my mentors said, here's the thing, come to work every day with $2 in pennies. And every time you make a cold call, regardless of what the outcome is, take one of those pennies and put it in a cup, because you are making an investment in your future by doing the action. We can debate it, or you can do it. You know, both of my kids were on the swim team. Coach said one day, you and I can stand on the side of the pool and debate or talk about your stroke, or you can get in the water. So going back to something, I want to make sure that folks here in this particular industry, in this one that I love so much, that it started my selling career, I gave this question to my consulting client that I was just talking about. Now they are in supply chain consulting. So they are constantly hammering people on price. And when they get in front of the CFO, which they do, this is a question that they ask. Not, well, how come you don't understand how valuable we are? Or why are you asking us to negotiate price? I don't even want to make that the topic. I want to know what their criteria are for assessing a firm like ours. And if you've got a CFO who says, well, we should not be paying that much, okay, what is it that you expect from a firm like ours? What ROI are you looking for? Because now what we've done, David, is we've moved from a selling conversation to a business conversation. And if you're selling to a CFO, you got to speak that language. And speaking that language, you spent a little bit of time out of the country earlier this year. Speaking the language and being reasonably fluent is very different from hearing it and wondering what's going on.
Very much so.
The language of the executive is different from the language of the seller. And the quicker the seller understands that and starts learning that language, the more the revenue will start to show up. A quarter from now, 2 quarters from now. Oh, we got a question.
Got a question. Well, and Stephen, thanks for saying it. And by the way, I didn't mention it up front, but please do use the Q&A. We'll jump in and ask it. So we're talking about sales technique, and you were talking about cold calling, and the question just came in. What do you think about using video as part of your initial outreach?
Well, oddly enough, I have strong feelings about that.
No.
Shocking. Here's the thing. If you cannot stare the camera down, if you cannot deliver a message without you knows, then don't use video. Video is unforgiving. David and I were talking prior to the session beginning about the difference between a live performance and when I go into the recording studio. We can keep fixing stuff in the recording studio, but when you're live, people get it. If you do not pay attention and if you do not mentally edit your video messages, you may be doing yourself more harm than good. One of the key components in my universe of being an effective seller is having exceptional presentation skills. And here's the thing, David, the fact that someone feels comfortable in front of an audience is a completely different concept from them having good skills in front of an audience. You've spoken for many years. I made a real good living for 9 years. I still speak a couple of times a year, but not often. Thank God, you know, the coaching practice is very healthy. Whenever I am asked to speak, I will spend 2 hours in preparation in 2 days before. I will spend 40 minutes in preparation the morning of. And this is material that not only have I written, I've delivered over 400 times.
Wow.
Why? Because my audience deserves the absolute best I can bring to the table that day, that moment. Sounds like executive language. Sounds like you get in front of the CFO, you better make sure your language is tight, your questions are focused on their concerns and their future. So, Stephen, you asked what are my thoughts on video? Send me one, and I will be happy to critique it. Big difference between critique and criticize. I'm not interested in criticizing people. A critique will point out what you do well, will point out a specific area for improvement and how you can improve. And I will share with you the best thing about the video. So please send me a pitch video. Tell me that you're going to find me my next VP of sales, and I will be happy to walk you through it. Again, what happens with video? Number one, make sure you got good lighting. Number two, quality microphone. Number three, you have to be able to stare the camera down. Because what that does is it makes people feel as though you're speaking to them, not to that person.
Yeah, and I will build on that, John, if I may. I had a recruiter who on LinkedIn reached out via video, and I will tell you, a video outreach versus a text-based outreach is night and day different. Now, what he did that was so effective was, number one, in his video, just like you had the question on the piece of paper, he had my name on a little board. So before I clicked play, I knew that he was saying, "Hi, David," and this was for me. Number two, he didn't just jump on video and make a message. He had done his homework. He knew Haley Marketing. He knew what we did. He recruits in our industry. He knows the challenges we're likely to be facing. He didn't go into sales pitch mode. What he went into was, I know what businesses like yours typically are dealing with, and this was a little bit ago. He goes, I know about the challenges with compensation in the marketing world. I know about the massive turnover challenges that are going on in your world. And if you ever need someone to talk to about it, I've got a lot of experience that you may find valuable and would love to just chat. If one day you need our services, great. If you never need our services, I'm still happy to chat. That non-threatening intro, he was, now I'm all intimidated by you, John, because I don't use words nearly as well, and I'm not as good staring at the camera. But I will tell you that that video message got me to reply. Didn't need his services yet, but I feel like I have a friend on LinkedIn that I could turn to, as opposed to the other 100 outreaches of people who are trying to sell me something. So, Stephen, I'm a big fan of video. John, we're going to get to, for those who are marketers saying, David, you haven't said a word about integrating marketing and sales yet. I promise we're going to spend a lot of time on that. But I actually wanted, before we go to the integration, I want to talk about sales management, because, John, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of from clients, and I'm shocked by this, is that they can't get people to make calls. that it's exceptionally difficult to get salespeople to do what are the fundamentals of the job. And my personal opinion is it's because a lot of salespeople in our industry have joined since 2010. And for the first times in their careers, they're truly seeing it's hard to sell. Because from 2010 to, throw out COVID, 2010 to 2022, everyone was hiring. You had to still differentiate your services, but you had an audience where everyone was a buyer, and they probably weren't thrilled because their current vendor couldn't fill every open order. So there was always opportunity.
Right.
Not the case today. So what do sales managers do to deal with that call reluctance?
You have to identify whether or not you've got the right person. One of the biggest challenges in sales management is recruiting and hiring. Once we accomplish that, then it's retention. And I was telling you right before we began, I'm working on a project where we're building a sales team in St. Louis. We had 4 people up until Monday afternoon. Monday afternoon, we had to separate someone from the org because the performance was not there, and following instructions was not there, and no one ever felt as though this person was there to kill it. One of the person's colleagues said, yeah, that person was pretty chill. Not the right personality for sales. You do not have to be as gregarious and emotive as I am to be a successful seller, not even close. One of the best salespeople I ever had working for me was one of the most even-keeled people. She had this just very calming approach, and she was fantastic. She was a killer because she paid attention, and she was highly disciplined, and she knew why she was there. She was there to trade her time and effort for commissions. And really, that's what it boils down to, David. Is this person here, are they trading their time and effort for commissions? Because if they're there to be social, if they're there to, one of these days I'd like a promotion, that doesn't inspire me. That doesn't express fire. When one of the questions that came over was, do you think that curiosity and discipline can be taught or encouraged? And personally, I do not think so. I started playing an instrument when I was 9 years old. By the time I was 11, my father told me when I was in my early 20s, he said, by the time you were 11 years old, you were practicing 3 hours a day. No one ever told you to practice. I practiced because I wanted to. When I started at an employment desk in Manhattan in 19... I couldn't leave the desk unless I knew I had a job order that day. Now, you said that, there was a time where everybody was hiring. Well, when I started in this business, it was insane. We were more a screening service than anything else. Interestingly enough, there was an airline that was hiring for global flight attendants. It's not what they were called back then. They were hiring for global flight attendants. Our agency had 35 people. And I remember us being contracted by this airline with a notebook of questions and what the appropriate responses should be. And we interviewed people, and we asked them to be able to respond in German and in French and in Spanish and this. And I've just thought about this over the last couple of weeks, that we effectively were contracted to not only assess the skills, but to get a sense of the personality. And right now, culture fit, I believe, is way more important than it has been for some time. The concept of going back to the office, if it's a condition of employment, that's the way it is. There's an HR consultant who is very vocal on LinkedIn, who used to be the chief human resources officer for a $3 billion a year company. And this person is spouting off about you cannot force people to go back to the office. And I commented and I said, when you were the chief human resources officer, Wasn't showing up in the office on time a condition of employment? So
Did you get a response?
he hasn't responded, no. People don't post on LinkedIn so they can be challenged by, this odd musician Ukrainian that lives in Southwest Idaho.
Definitely. We had a question come in that I wanted to have you answered, and then we'll jump on some of the marketing stuff. So, John, if you have to navigate a large team, and here the example is 360 recruiters, how are you balancing the sales motivation and recruiting activities when you're managing a big team?
All right. Well, if you've got 360 recruiters, I want to know what your sales management philosophy is. I want to know what you say so consistently and so often and so clearly that it can be repeated by your frontline recruiters, your team leaders, and your whatever your not 360 recruiters,
360 desks. Thanks for the clarification. But it's okay. I still want to hear, because some of our clients do have big recruiting teams. So I think we should answer that. But then we can also talk about the 360 desk where they have to balance their time.
All right. So, well, apparently this person and I will have a sidebar after this about clarity of language. So,
or just me, John, clarity of understanding.
No, I read the same thing. All right. So a 360-degree desk. So are we talking about the fact that it's just this big?
No, that means they have to basically do all the hunting, do all the selling, and then they have to go recruit and fill the orders. So if you're in that role, okay, you've probably spent time mostly doing the filling, but now the recruiters have to be salespeople. They have to go back to doing the hunting. And I've heard many clients that the recruiters are, shall we say, reticent to doing that.
Well, because that's not the job that they believe they were hired for, right? And that's this is part of the concept of change is the only constant. That is not heartwarming, and it doesn't fix the problem today. So as a 360-degree desk, all right, I love that terminology, because what it does is it tells me that people are spinning. If you keep spinning at your desk, you're going to screw your chair right into the floor. How about you create some discipline around the thing that you enjoy the least and get it over with? Brian Tracy wrote a book called Eat the Frog First. Well, that pretty much tells the whole story. If part of your job is to eat a frog every day, get it out of the way as soon as possible, right? Now, I'm not trying to oversimplify this, and I'm not trying to say, well, just go ahead and do the hard stuff. Here's the thing. I have yet to come across any recruiter who does not have a reasonable level of skill in being persuasive. Being persuasive, meaning we've got this role for you. We think you'd be perfect for it. When we were in Illinois, you and I were talking to several leaders about the fact that this is an intangible sale. We're selling something that doesn't exist. So how do you maintain the motivation? How do you stay focused? How do you stay on task? Couple of things. Number one, I have yet to come across a business day where I have been effective and efficient in accomplishing more than 10 specific things in a day. So years ago, I came up with this sheet called 10 tasks today. David, anybody that emails me during or after this that would like a PDF of a real direct and simple form that they will fill out with a pen. I have people that have scanned it so that it's on their iPad and it's an interactive document. They can just keep reusing it. I'm happy to share it with you. When that screenwriter that I told you about that said, every discipline is a mental discipline, he gave me a great quote some years ago. Because we were both struggling with how to get through the really hard parts of the day. And he said, I don't remember the philosopher's name, but someone said, elevate your purpose and simplify. Elevate your purpose and simplify. Well, I have all of these things to do. Okay, which ones will you do with efficiency and proficiency before you either run out of energy, decide to stop your business day, or want to put your feet up? So again, anybody that's interested in it, I see people are saying yes, please. Okay, what's the best way to get it to them? To email you? To email me?
You can just give me your email address if you don't mind, and then they can reach out to you directly.
Oh, I put it in the chat.
Perfect. While you're doing that, I actually want to talk about the 360 desk question again. One little thing is thinking about pipeline management. So if you're a salesperson or recruiter and you didn't have a 360 desk, you would have prospects at various stages of the sales cycle. You have accounts you're managing. You have to think about how to divide your week. How much do I spend on the people that are hot prospects? How much do I spend on tomorrow's prospects? How much do I spend on touching base with my former clients? Because if I don't have a system for touching base with each of those audiences, I'm probably spending all my time on the hot prospects. And those job orders come in and then they get filled. I no longer have this pipeline, and I have this up and down snake-like experience to my selling. The best sellers are working in a disciplined way at all levels. So they're advancing their long-term pipeline, they're advancing their medium pipeline, they're advancing their short-term. On a 360 desk, you have to say how much of my week should be recruiting and how much has to be business development. And then how do I break those down between job orders that I've already got the candidate, they're at the finish line, I just need them to sign. Candidates I have to get the send out done versus working my clients and prospects to build my funnel. I just think it's a matter of the discipline, which you said earlier, to how you plan your week. And I'm a big fan of time blocking. The beginning of the week is a beautiful blank slate. First thing you do is put in the blocks for all of your most important activities, and nothing crosses into those blocks.
You know what the single hardest, most difficult word for a salesperson to utter out loud is?
No.
No, I will not change that meeting. No, I will not take this incoming call. No, I will not change my plan. Well, why? Because, oh, this might be fun, right? Shiny metal object syndrome, squirrel, right? And I'm the king of it, brother. I mean, I went from playing, snare drum to playing timpanis, to playing tim toms in marching band, to playing baritone horn, to play, it's like I can't pay attention. Here's the thing, though. What did we say earlier? People trade their time and their effort for commissions. How do you want to spend your time? Well, I don't want to spend all of my time doing business development. Great. Then assign yourself periods of time over the course of the week to do that, so that come noon Friday, not 5 o'clock Friday, noon Friday, you have an accurate, specific number of actions you took. Because here's the thing. Number one, all of our messaging has got to be drawn from what the marketing and the branding is all about. Number two, every selling conversation is about the future. If I find that I no longer have a pipeline and I get on the phone to hurry up and get job orders, I will not. When I am on the phone in the 1st and 3rd week of August, and I'm talking about what job orders might be coming up in October and January, goes back to executive conversations, as opposed to business conversations, as opposed to sales conversations. We want to be that regular ready resource. I love alliteration, right? We want to be that regular ready resource. I caution everyone on this call to be very careful with their use of the word partner. Because I'll tell you what, I've had 1 or 3 partners over the course of my 24-year practice. They don't share the risk that I do. And their attention can be brought elsewhere. You're not a partner unless you've put in cash. Bottom line, right? So instead of saying I want to be a partner, how can we be a regular ready resource? How do we look down the road of what you think your hiring needs and plan will be in Q3 and Q4? This has been one of the most reliable things in the staffing work that I've done. And Tom Erb and I talk about this a bunch. We've talked about this a bunch. And it really is powerful in the consulting world. And I'm not saying that recruiters are consultants. However, a consultative approach of, number one, beginning as few sentences with the word I as possible. Number two, following every declarative statement with a question. And number 3, earning what my writing partner and I, a guy named Doug Hall, also out of St. Louis, he and I are working on a book called Bionic Sales. He says, we have to earn 10 seconds of pause. When you are in conversation with someone live, over the phone, over Zoom, and you can ask a question and you can maintain the discipline to be silent for 10 seconds, you will learn more about that other person than any other action. People say, well, there's an uncomfortable silence. Well, there's a lot of strength in you deciding, I'm not uncomfortable.
Absolutely agree with that. And I know you were waiting for me, but I have to keep going here.
Okay.
So I do want to switch. You started to mention branding and you mentioned marketing, and as a sales trainer, sales professional, tell me your perspective on the role of marketing and how it integrates with sales.
One of my challenges with salespeople is that they think they need to come up with a new message every time they go to market. They think that they have to create, I have to have something to tell them that will inspire them to buy from me. No. What you have to do is you have to ask them questions enough so that they become curious about who we are and how they evaluate firms like ours. So the integration, the partnership, almost said it, the way to work together between sales and marketing is to understand that we're not at odds. We perform different functions, all with the same goal of upping the revenue. Right? The key measurement of an organization is there's only one reason businesses exist, and that's to generate profit. We can say, well, it's to also, do good in society. It's also, well, to create, safe employment. But yeah, you can't do any of that stuff unless you're profitable, right? So marketing helps the salesperson by giving us key language we can use in how we introduce ourselves when prospecting, how we can identify the key questions that prospects will use to qualify us. And we don't have to reinvent pitch decks or introductory statements or those video messages, because when there is consistency of language and there's consistency of tone between marketing and sales, there's a perception that the organization is working together effectively. Marketing people are by default creative, and they want as much clarity as we can possibly bring. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that means, well, salespeople, well, how come we don't blank? Or why aren't we blank? That's not problem solving. Problem solving is, who specifically are we as an organization interested in capturing as clients? And how can the marketing brand, messaging, and language help me to engage in those business conversations?
Yeah, I completely agree. The thing that I see very often is that marketing, the internal marketers, are very frequently treated like they're the creative gophers when sales needs something. Get me a sell sheet, get me a brochure. Oh, we need a post on social media. But really the sales and marketing integration should be thoroughly symbiotic, meaning that marketing is in the room when sales is talking about what's going on with their clients and their prospects. They should be hearing all of the objections. They should be hearing customer complaints and customer accolades. They should be thinking about, who are we trying to reach? Then marketing's job is to help understand the audience by assimilating all of that information, all the data from all the salespeople and all the recruiters to understand, now this is marketing speak, to understand the persona of the various audiences. Fancy way of saying is, we want to know what makes each person we're calling on, we're selling to, we're recruiting. We want to know what makes them tick. Because in marketing parlance, what we're going to try to do is, we always talk about a model called ADA: attention, interest, desire, action. So the A in ADA is to get someone's attention. And we can only do that if we know what matters to them. Bad news, it is never, ever about staffing first, or very, very rarely. It's about a business challenge. It's about product not getting out the door. It's about a computer system that needs an upgrade. we need to find ways to help the salespeople have those conversations. And then at the end of the day, salespeople need help. What do I call on next? Because it's never a one-call close. How do I nurture the relationship to stay top of mind until there's an opportunity to then have the subsequent sales conversation and close the deal? Thoughts on that, John?
Lots of thoughts. Well, you looked to the left, so I wasn't sure if maybe there was, someone that was coming on to the camera or.
No, someone who stepped into my office who needed something that I shouldn't have had in my pocket, namely a set of car keys. This is when reality and webinars cross.
Yeah. Listen, we started by asking, is sales more difficult now than it has been? Yes. Is the gap between sales and marketing, does that make it more difficult? It's up to the salesperson. It is absolutely up to the sales leader, the VP of sales, the director of sales, the sales manager, whoever. The sales people, sales professionals are relationship masters. They are chameleon-like. They have better listening skills than the average human. They are innately, voraciously curious. And the ones that enact and practice discipline regularly, people look at and say, wow, how did they do that? Well, they're not standing around talking about doing stuff. They're busy doing it. They have a plan, they work the plan, and they have what a commercial real estate broker mentioned to me some years ago that have stuck with me. They have a 24-hour mentality. They don't work 24 hours a day. However, they're thinking about stuff 24 hours a day. I mean, the amount of post-it notes. What's that?
It's an owner's mentality.
It's an owner's mentality. The amount of post-it notes that I go through in a week, David, because I write it down and I either put it on the wall or I put it in my notebook, whatever. The sales and marketing, when they live in harmony, they present an image and create a perception in the marketplace that separates the company from their competitors.
100%.
That helps the salesperson because we already have a sense of who you are.
So,
well, go ahead.
John, I was gonna say, why do you think that so often doesn't happen in either they're completely siloed or at odds?
It is who's really responsible for bringing in the revenue? Who gets to thump their chest and say that they won it? You know what? How about all of us? Now, granted, why do salespeople get paid commission? Well, because they understand that they may go a week, a day, hopefully not a month, without earning any commission. They won't go hungry. However, I've been a salesperson, professional salesperson for many, many years. I have had lean times. Lean. 2008 is a great reference. There were others. Why are they at odds? Well, it's an issue of credit and it's an issue of credibility. When marketing people say, the salespeople just won't. Okay, that entire statement has to be.
Let's put up your fist to start.
That's exactly right. Or how come the salespeople don't? Okay, how about you go out on a day with a salesperson and you see what it's like to get in and out of the car and go into people's offices and be rebuffed all day. Well, if you didn't like it, you shouldn't have taken it on. Precisely. I've been thrown out of more buildings than I've spoken in. And I wear that as a red badge of courage.
So another thing that I think sometimes hampers the marketing side is a failure to think strategically. Sometimes we have shiny object syndrome. Oh, look, there's a new social media channel, so we should go try it out. As opposed to always starting with, well, what are we trying to accomplish? Who's closest to that goal? Usually it's the salespeople or the recruiters. And what do they need the most? Now, maybe that shiny new social media channel will bring in the leads, so it is the best path to it. But sometimes it's just a distraction. And we need to see where are the gaps in selling. So one of the things I'm a huge fan of is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is a structured sales process. When we go after prospects, we do these steps. I personally am a big fan of Those steps should integrate marketing touches that are planned, sometimes automation touches, and the salesperson picking up the phone, sending a video. So I do step 1, step 2, step 3 in a systematic process, because that process has been tested and we know it's the maximum chance for result. And at the end of that process, everybody goes on to a system of regular nurturing, because we don't know when they're going to have a need, or that current vendor is going to make a mistake and we're getting an opportunity. And the worst thing to hear is, oh, so-and-so was just in here last week and we gave them the chance because we had a need last week. So what is your thought on how structured the sales process should be?
I'm going to throw a grenade in the middle of that.
I'll take it.
Okay. Marketing answers the question, what and why? What do we do? Why should you do business with us? The salesperson has to get the answer to when, not when are you going to hire us? This is critical, and I hope people have stuck on with the call to get this. It's not when will you do business with us? It's when do we speak again? You talked about that person who said, hey, you may never hire us, but let's at least speak. And you know what, David, you're a smart business owner and you're a reasonably social dude. Sure. My client in St. Louis, he says, I'll talk to anybody once. Right? If they can't keep up, or if they're boring, or it doesn't make sense, then I don't have to talk to them again. Marketing answers what and why, what we do and why someone should choose us. Salespeople have got to get the answer to the question individually throughout the sales process with every single prospect. When should we talk again? This idea that salespeople say, well, I cold call them, and I didn't get a response, so I'm going to put them in a once a week touch. Why? Well, I'm going to reach out to them once every 3 months. Why? What if they all of a sudden decide to either make an acquisition and they need to hire 50 people, or they have just been granted a contract and they need to hire 50 people and you didn't know about it because you were waiting? Sorry, waiting is not an action step. So I see 2 questions. How much time do we have left?
We got just a couple of minutes left, and they're related questions, so we'll try to get them in here for Brian. Brian wants to know industry specific. What industries may have the most hiring potential for the rest of this year, and what are we most worried about for this year?
All right, you want to take it?
If you've got some thoughts on that, I don't know if I have an answer, but I'll give my opinion.
All right. Anybody that has sold anything technical, or can code, or can manage a project that has to do with the installation of a technology in a corporation, that's where hiring is going to occur. Tech is not going anywhere. Tech is only expanding. One of my clients that we're now in the 4th year of working together has gone from 14 employees to 36 in 14 months. They're hiring salespeople, they're hiring project managers, they're hiring techs, they're hiring engineers, and they are a reseller. They're not even the company that's providing the product, the service, the platform, or the idea. So absolutely tech. Also, and maybe this is just my limited worldview, I think travel has a huge upside. I think that everything from mid-level to 4 and 5 star. One of my clients, David, is a magazine, an advertising tool that is referred to as a magazine called Travel Host. Now, some of you may have seen it in your local city, sitting at hotels and stuff. Travel Host is now owned by the conglomerate that started 5 Hour Energy, and Travel Host is on its way to owning several what we call over-the-air television stations all across North America. And for those of you that don't operate in that space, the amount of people that are shutting off cable service provider and digital television providers is stunning. I mean, the 2 big providers are very nervous because over the air is coming back. What the local station is speaking to the local viewership and different programming. So this is part of a whole thing that I learned a statistic a month and a half ago. 65% of people that will come to a secondary or 3rd level city, not New York, not Los Angeles, secondary or 3rd level population city, 65% of the people that will come in there for a 2 or 3 night stay have no idea what they're going to do when they get there.
Wow.
So this advertising, this magazine is tied to the local television station, which is going to feed into and have their own channel in the hotels to help people figure out where to eat, what attractions to go to, how to spend their time on their time away. I'll tell you what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is the future of logistics. Amazon is effectively the owner of that space, number one. There is a 1 million square foot warehouse 1.5 miles from my house, and I'm in Southwest Idaho. The aging out of truck drivers is very concerning. Whether or not driverless trucks are going to make it, I don't want to be on the freeway next to one, but that's just me. So where I know there's going to be growth, because it's in my practice now, is tech and travel. What I'm concerned about is logistics. Not is Amazon going to get the box to your door? There is a universal logistics that has nothing to do with getting a box to your door. And with Yellow going out of business 2 weeks ago, that stuff like that gets my attention, man. I have seen Yellow on the side of trucks for as long as I can remember, and I got a pretty good memory.
Yeah, and I think Brian, I don't know if the industry is specific, but almost every industry right now is in the mode of figuring out what to do in terms of cost control. So if they're on the ascension or the decline, they're trying to figure out, how do I get stuff done more efficiently? I think that leads to solutions that are more global talent sourcing. So thinking about, how do I build teams consisting of full-time hires, remote hires, international hires, temps and contractors. And I think it's up to staffing companies to get really good at putting together global teams for their clients. I think if you look at an industry like healthcare, they're coming off the COVID hangover. I had a friend who said every hospital's broke right now. So they know they need travelers. They know there's a shortage of nurses, but they don't have any money. So how do you help the healthcare systems to improve their efficiency? Maybe different approaches to travel staffing. It's challenges for our industry, because we're not just in the business of supplying temps to go work and get paid by the hour. We're in the business of solving work getting done problems. And the more we can think that way, the more we will change our businesses to go into the future. And my last one on the what's going to grow is, we joked at the beginning about AI, and we never even got to it in this presentation. But the reality is AI integration into roles. If you can be a staffing company that's really good at how AI gets integrated into technology, accounting and finance, engineering, don't know about the blue collar roles, but you can be a leader in understanding where your clients are trying to go and bringing in a workforce that understands that. Short term, that's going to give you a big leg up, because it's everybody's interest. All right, we are at the end of the hour. We've actually gone over by a little tiny bit. John, if you want to just repeat, I put it in the chat. I think the one you sent went to just me. So I put it in the chat so everybody got it. But any other places people can connect with you. And I'm going to share one more screen and we are done.
Okay, yeah, sure. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I accept connections all the time. There are only 2 Klymshyns on LinkedIn. Well, actually, there are 3, but I'm the only John Klymshyn that is in the business world. My son is in entertainment. So Klymshyn, John Klymshyn on LinkedIn, and you can email me at John, JOHN, at Klymshyn, KLYMSHYN.com.
Thanks, John. I just put up on the screen here, if there's questions for us, you can get us at info@haleymarketing.com. Our team is always happy to answer questions. And then my last one is, next month, we do not have a lunch with Haley, but it is the 3rd edition of our Smart Ideas Summit. This is a really fun day-long event. We have 14 speakers that are going to be giving a new presentation every 30 minutes, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern with a 12 to 1 break for lunch. New presentations this year. And so you will get absolutely filled with ideas. Some of the top consultants in the staffing industry are going to be there sharing some really great ideas. And we may not have gotten to AI today, but I know at least 3 of our sessions are going to touch on it, how it integrates with sales, marketing, recruiting. So please join us at the Smart Ideas Summit. It is free to attend. And we know not everybody can be there all day long. So we're recording everything for those who sign up. You can go to haleymarketing.com/smart ideas, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month on our Smart Ideas version of Lunch with Haley. Thanks, everybody.